Today we're going to follow up on our bale grazing demonstration here in central Kentucky, and if you recall, last week we looked at some of the paddocks that had been grazed early in the winter with the bales. Now what we're going to look at is the last couple paddocks, which would have been cattle had been in there sometime in March, maybe into early April. And you can see some of the differences. Now, one of the things to keep in the back of our minds as we look at that is there's been less time for hay to deteriorate, but also we had anywhere between 4 and 5 inches each of the months of December, January, February, and March. So you start looking at it through those quote-unquote winter time frame, there was nearly 20 inches of rain that fell, and that can have an impact on some of the potential damage that we're going to see. And so one of the things to also just kind of in the back of your mind consider is what kind of damage would we have expected if those cattle would have been on a regular sacrifice lot with the same amount of precipitation or rain. It would have been a pretty muddy mess. And so as you look at some of the things in the next few minutes here, just think about the amount of precipitation that we have and the comparisons that may have been if they would have been in a sacrifice lot. All right, we're in the paddock 2, which would have been the second area that would have been bale grazed, and we'll kind of look at some of the differences here. You can see maybe a little bit more residual hay left here, but again, most of that's due to hay quality and the fact that we've got quite a bit of stem left. But notice the grass is starting to recover in the middle. Most of our damage tends to be limited out here to the edge, where the cattle would have been standing. And so when we have really wet winters with a lot of moisture, the pressure of those feet and the moisture in the soil just doesn't support the cattle, and so you get a little bit of damage around the edge. But here in the middle of the bale, other than where there was residual hay, there's not that hoof damage, and so you can begin to see forage recovery pretty quickly. As we walk across field 2, we'll kind of come up on some other areas where bales were placed, and you'll see that there was very little damage. It was likely during a period of time when we didn't have as much rain, and the hay quality would have been just a little bit better, so these areas healed a little bit quicker. Now, mind you, this is the first week in June. Some damage around this area. Middle of the bale has deteriorated. Quite a bit of grass has grown back up in there already. This paddock was grazed about 13 days ago. So these paddocks have already been grazed twice. He's been across these paddocks twice already. And so he's about 4 or 5 days from getting back in here for a third time already here in June. Lots of white clover, some red clover in here. This year on this farm seems to be a really good clover year. Might be because of the warmer weather and the moisture that we've had, and relatively good moisture through the springtime. Now, in this area, you can see an example of pretty minimal damage, but there is certainly a reduction in yield where the feet were and caused some damage around the edge of the bale. And so when I walk that across from one edge to the other, generally it's about 20 to 25 feet that we might have a little bit reduction in productivity. And I'm not accounting for increases in growth here in the middle, but you can see that in this bale you've got substantial regrowth coming on, and it looks really good.